Happiness is beautiful, it's a kind reality. Happiness is the highest good, happiness is free. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.
Welcome to the Happiness Show. This is George Ortega. I'm here with Lionel Ketchian, and we're here to talk about happiness because happiness is, always has been, and always will be the point of it all. Excuse me. Okay, let's begin our Ketchian and Ortega Happiness Dialogues, number 7, with a consideration of why certain things in life don't bring lasting happiness. You know, why is that, Lionel?
Good question, George. I think it's because happiness is the most important thing of all, and we keep trying to surround ourselves with everything else but. And the question we have to ask ourselves is, with all that we've gotten, with all we've tried to get, you know, the education, the money, the house, and the dog, is that making us happy? And is that enough? Is that, or what does it take to find happiness? I mean, the question is, how come we haven't found it yet?
Okay, yeah, and I think part of the answer is that it was only in the early 60s that psychologists really began to comprehensively study happiness. And there have been a bit over 3,000 published studies on happiness, and almost all of them have been devoted to determining what works in sustaining people's happiness and what doesn't. They've come up with fairly, good and interesting findings. For example, our number one source for lasting happiness is a significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. So that's one thing that does bring lasting happiness. But they've also discovered things that don't. Things that we think might, but they don't. And some of these things are good things. For example, becoming educated. Okay, we're taught, from an early age that education is very important. It's very important to us, to society, and all. But 40 years of happiness research has shown that we can have 5 PhDs. We can become as educated as possible, and that's not going to affect our level of happiness very much. Provided that happened, we could of course educate ourselves in happiness, and that certainly would. But again, the basic idea is that education, which we believe, value so much in terms of happiness, is one thing they've found really doesn't affect our happiness that much.
That's very interesting, because what you're saying is knowledge doesn't necessarily, or even intelligence for that matter, doesn't necessarily equate to happiness. And really, the obvious reason for that is, as you say, the research is going in. A book by Daniel Goleman, for example, Emotional Intelligence, is really an example of what you're talking about, that we put so much value on an IQ, because, hey, I'm a genius, and the truth is that our EQ, our emotional quotient, is maybe even more valuable to us as human beings than our IQ. In fact, what about a combination of both? Now, there's a winning combination.
Oh yeah. I mean, sometimes in religion, I think in philosophy also, there's this idea that we should follow our head before our heart, but the heart is very important. The heart is like that emotional intelligence. A lot of times that'll guide us in ways that our logical mind won't.
That's very true. Yeah, and a lot of times we just don't, we second guess ourselves. We really talk ourselves out of a decision, and we become confused about what to do next, and then we don't follow our heart. So it's interesting to go back to, well, what did we feel was right? And we don't like to go with those feelings. We have to ask everyone under the sun, and then we finally say, now I really don't know what to do.
Okay, here's another thing that they've found. Another thing that I think we're really cultured to pursue and value greatly is success. And this is like success in sports, success at work, success in whatever, Success is generally greatly promoted in our society, success in school and all. Again, the research has demonstrated that becoming successful, being, for example, much more successful at pretty much anything that other people, doesn't influence one's happiness that much. You know, and that's, I mean, that's, for example, like, yeah, a person could be like, you know, let's say the greatest tennis players in the world, let's say the 100 greatest tennis players, they're not going to be any happier than the worst 100 tennis players in the world, you know? And that's very important, because like a lot of times we think, well, yeah, if I become really good at something, if I, you know, excel, oh, people are going to respect me, I'm going to respect myself, things like that. Yeah, a lot of times things like that will happen, but will that lead to lasting happiness? No, the 40 years of happiness research demonstrates that success in general has very little influence on our happiness.
Yeah, you're right. And so the other thing to consider is when we ask the question, you know, what brings us lasting happiness? You know, we're looking at cars. You know, you mentioned education, you mentioned marriage, and those are significant things that we could say, okay, here's marriage. You know, here's money, here's success, a career. Those are significant things we could sort of measure and talk about. But there are other things that bring lasting happiness that are not so tangible. And those are things that happiness experts are now finding are incorporated in happy people. And those things are things like gratitude, and things like peacefulness, and things like, just acceptance of realizing you know, what you can control and what you can't. So there are other factors that are within our control that we don't even bother with. We're always going out into the world to try to manipulate, change, or control something so that we can take a step up, when we can do that within ourselves so easily. We can start to control certain steps and factors within us that will give us manyfold what the outside world can't give us, even if we actually succeed. Because as you know, George, there's a lot of very successful people, once they've succeeded, once they've been #1 skier, you know, beating the guy by 1/10 of 1/100,000th of a second behind him, and he's #1, so what? You know, 10 years later, he's an alcoholic. He said, hey, I was #1, the world's greatest skier, but then there's nothing. You know, you go from being the greatest skier in the world to stepping off the cliff to being nobody. And that's a little hard. There's no such thing as a once and for all success, because there's no such thing as once and for all fame. And you know, if you make money, you start worrying about losing money, and then you worry about making more money, or how much money you should have made. So it goes on, but there's so many things within us that are attainable that we don't seem to value or understand.
That's very true. As a matter of fact, that leads us into the second part of this consideration. Why don't many of the things that we believe will make us lastingly happier or happy succeed? Why don't they you know, enable us to be as happy as we think they will? And I think basically you refer to the idea that these things are external. You know, these things often go on outside of us. You know, sure, we can, like, you know, have knowledge. This thing that we you know, that we learn becomes a part of us, but still, it's kind of like it's a thing external to our, let's say, core being, or making money. Again, it's something that it's external to who we are. So then the question does become, you know, why don't these things make us happy? And then I guess we should get right into, well, you know, if these external kinds of things don't make us happy or very happy, what does?
Well, I think the only thing that can make you happy, and this may sound a little bit perplexing, is happiness itself. And there's a thought that goes something like this: there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. So considering that, what we're really saying is that if you adopt, or as we said the last program, if you decide to be happy, you use that as a commitment level to run your life. You know, you use that as the chairman of the board to say, okay, if this doesn't fit in with happiness, it's no good to me. It's of no use. And so I'm not going to chase down something that is going to bring me to unhappiness, because I've already been there, done that, and it doesn't feel like it's any good. And as you get older, I think you can really honestly say to yourself, life is short. So I owe it to myself, at least, to spend the rest of whatever time I have left to be happy. And that's a lot of time, because nobody knows how much time they have left. I've had older people say to me, you know, but now that I really understand happiness, I'm older and I don't have as much time as I did when I was younger. So look, we all have the same time. We don't know how much time that is. So a young person could have less time than an older person. Life doesn't work like that. So it's not true that we're older or younger. No, since we all don't know how much time we have, because in a moment one of us may not be here, we have to stop and take the time and say, look, whatever amount it is, there's a good time to start by being happy and to continue with that, because life is short, no matter how old you are.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like, you know, if we want to consider death also, I mean, it's the idea that, like, you know, this life may end, but we don't know what's on the other side. I mean, considering, you know, that we have our traditional beliefs, you know.
Well, wait a minute, are you saying, well, first of all, we know you can't take your money with you, right? You can't take it with you?
Sure.
But do you think we could take our happiness with us?
I mean, one of the wonderful things about religion is that it assures us of that, or it, you know, it strives to create that belief in us.
Yeah.
You know, logically, realistically, there's no way that we can know what happens when we die, right? But religions have fostered the belief that, you know, if we're good, relatively good, whatever, we're going to heaven. Okay.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, if you were in heaven, could you really picture heaven with a few unhappy people in it? It wouldn't be heaven, right?
No, not at all.
So, in other words, if you're happy now, you're sort of pre-qualifying yourself for heven then, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I like that. I think that's true. Now, another set of beliefs, you know, and in fact, maybe, could be 3/4 of the world believes in reincarnation, believe it or not. Another thought is, if you're happy now, you set up a better reincarnation for the next time just by being happy. I mean, that's part of their belief too.
Oh yeah, it's the idea of karma. Like, for example, that if we're good in this life, then we will be rewarded for our goodness with a better life.
Right.
And you know, it's an upward spiral. Sure.
Yeah, it is. And you know, there's the Tibetan Book of the Dead deals with, I think, the 40 days after you die. You know, but the basic part of that book that it talks about is that don't go in. Now we're talking about when somebody has died. Don't go into fear, because if you step into fear, you don't end up in the best of places. So go with happiness is pretty much what this is about, and it's rather intriguing. So what we're really saying is, whether it's here or there, happiness is a good strategy to use, whatever it is. Now here's another one for you that I've thought about. Let's say we are in eternity. So, you know, it's not just this moment, the next moment, the next, but we're here forever, you know? And if that's true, what a heck of a good reason to start being happy now, because I don't want to spend the rest of eternity being unhappy. I mean, it's bad enough being unhappy for life, but imagine for eternity.
Yeah.
So it's a good time to start.
Oh yeah, and also, like, the idea of heaven and eternal bliss, you know, this heavenly bliss that lasts forever, is a very good lesson for us to apply to these lives, to our lives now.
Yeah.
Because, like, many of us who are religious will believe that, yeah, sure, when we get to heaven, we can be happy 100% of the time, right? Well,
Good point.
So
Good
the
point.
idea is that, like, that, you know, but then a lot of us say, well, that's heaven, that's not earth. But, you know, accepting that belief, understanding that belief that, you know, reality, this universe, does provide this opportunity for boundless eternal bliss, you know, when we're not alive, leads to the conclusion that, wait, why not have that experience while we are alive? Sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, well, I always say happiness, the opposite of happiness is not unhappiness, but fear. And I think fear is a very debilitating state to be in. And one, believe it or not, that we end up choosing because we don't choose happiness, because we don't decide to be happy, we can certainly slip into fear. And knowingly, you wouldn't want to be there, but, you know, that's worry, concern, you know, phobias. And do we really need to live like that? When we can choose happiness, we can take the high road. And the good thing there is, as you mentioned, happiness being the ultimate good, then we're doing good to ourselves, and we're doing good to all that we come in contact with by being happy. I mean, that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, now I want to get back to something you said before, because it was, like, so on point. You said that the only way to be happy is to be happy, and that's like so important because, like, for example, we went through a few of the things that don't make us happy.
Yes.
Like becoming more educated, becoming more successful. Again, if becoming wealthier. Now, the idea though is that there are a lot of very successful, very educated, and very wealthy, etc., very happy people. So I think in their case, what they're saying to themselves is, because I'm successful or because I'm educated, then I can be very happy. You know, in other words, like they're giving themselves permission to be very happy because of what they've attained or what they've been given in life.
Well, you know, I'm going to ask you a question. I haven't really picked this apart with you before, but I would say that those people, if they're really happy, they had to be happy first.
Well, I think in a sense I have to agree with you, because what happens is, like, they set up a condition that they could meet.
Yeah, so I think happiness helped them attain those things.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. The idea, I mean, happiness is now being demonstrated to benefit people in so many ways. Like, happier people make more money, happier people are healthier, happier people have more friends. Oh.
You know what I just found out, George, and I was listening to TV news, and I don't know what channel it was or what news report, but they said that in a recent study, people who were unhappy and depressed, or either one, were twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's. Now that's, if that isn't a reason to put a smile on your face, or at least to feel that happiness may be a good possibility for you, I don't know what is. And that's taking our health to another level, and saying that it's really tied in, really hardwired into what we're thinking and how we're acting and what our emotions and what our behavior is doing. Wow, and we have control over all of that.
Oh yeah, because like happiness does affect our both emotional and physical health, and more evidence on this is coming out, and this is great because, like, you know, becoming happy is something that is easy to learn.
Yes.
All it takes is the effort and, you know, a program, the principles. And so with all this evidence coming out on the benefits of happiness, we spend a lot of money on health care. We spend a lot of money on things like that. And if governments get wise, if we as a people get wise, you know, elections are coming up in 2004, we'll say to our politicians, listen, you know, start teaching our kids to become very happy so they will be healthier, so they'll be more productive, you know, and so that will save us a lot of money in healthcare. That'll increase, grow our economy by making people more productive economically. So yeah, this idea of increasing our happiness and becoming happier because of the benefits is something that has a great amount of potential, not just for this society, but for societies throughout the world.
So what you're saying, George, is that if people would just learn that lasting happiness is not found in things, but really in themselves, and how they pretty much direct their thoughts and manage themselves, they have some control over many things. They have control, they have decision-making control, and their emotions are going to respond very favorably to the way they're thinking. And in fact, you know, the other things of the world, the money, the job, and everything else will just benefit. I mean, all of us want better family life. But imagine being selfish, not self-centered, but selfish enough to care for yourself so that you're happy. That will send a message out to your whole family. They'll respond with happiness back, or they won't, but at least you'll be giving them happiness. And that's another aspect of happiness. It's so important, because if we don't give it to ourselves first, we really haven't got it to give others. And it needs to be out in the world. It needs to be here. It needs to be in our life, starting with us. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be in your life. You know, that's your choice. But if it's in mine, at least I've got it to give others. And the way I see it, lots of people are looking for it.
Oh yeah, Lionel, that's very important, because a lot of times our culture teaches us that it may be selfish, it may not be good to try to bring ourselves great pleasure, that we should be selfless in that way. But with all of these benefits that accrue to other people from our becoming happier, it becomes a very, very wise strategy for living. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention if anybody's interested, they can get more information on the website, www.happinessclub.com, and find out about free newsletter and the Happiness Club meetings.
Great. Okay. Now we're going to turn to Amy Branch for our West Coast Happiness section, and she's going to talk more about happiness. Take it away, Amy.
Hi, this is Amy Branch coming to you from Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan. Today on our show we have Mr. Dwight Washington, who is working in the educational system as a school counselor in the elementary school in the public school district. Mr. Washington has been studying emotions for quite some time, so happiness and education is something that's near and dear to his heart. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Great.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. So let's just start right into it and talk about happiness. What is your personal view?
Well, happiness is important. It's something that gets me through my day, and it really shapes my view of life to really bring me a lot of pleasure in life. Happiness is an emotion, and like all emotions, they're a little bit more difficult to define what is an emotion or what is a feeling, but it's more easy to say what makes you feel a certain way. So if I say playing soccer is something that makes me happy, I do know that, but actually what is the feeling of happiness is a little bit more difficult. And to answer that question, I would say that happiness is a general feeling that's pervasive of good-naturedness and a goodwill that can exist throughout the day, and it exhibits itself in a number of different emotions, such as exuberance, such as joy, celebration, cheerfulness, excitement, and all of these different positive emotions kind of come together and make up what I call like a big ball of happiness.
Great. Perfect.
Okay.
So how do we get that big ball of happiness into our educational system, or is that what I'm curious of the current state of the educational system as in your experience?
There are a number of exciting things going on in the schools, and we really should be proud and positive about what's taking place in the schools in terms of bringing these kids from being a little kid to a functioning adult in our society. The opportunity to have happiness or create learning environments where happiness takes place is becoming fewer and less often, because there's a lot of pressures taking place in the schools to perform to standards that have been set. And it's great that we do have standards for our students, but it's also important that we remember what are the things that are truly important. And if we look at some American values such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it's important that we do leave room for the pursuit of happiness and creating opportunities within the school for that happiness to occur. But it is very difficult when students and teachers are under a great deal of pressure, and what students are expected to know is something that's been created from some testing company far away, not really relevant to the children's lives. So the current state is very stressed right now, and it's important that we really do become mindful and all come together to promote and push for happiness in the schools, because there are a number of pressures that are taking place that make it that much more difficult to promote happiness in the schools.
In your perfect world, what would our educational system look like as it relates to happiness?
In a future world, an ideal setting for happiness would be a place where students are able to express themselves, as I stated earlier, and to create a meaning from their own education, something that's relevant to them, something that makes them happy. I remember myself going through school, and despite the fact that they told me that algebra was important, I know that I wasn't happy going to learn algebra. And I can think of some other classes, such as geography or social sciences, where I was able to take what I learned in the class and really apply a lot more to life, and that was more meaningful for me, and it made me more happy. So opportunities to be able to, like a curriculum that promotes individual goals, is healthy for creating happy schools, a community that's creating a community that has rituals and practices that allow opportunities for happy moments to occur is an excellent way to promote happiness. And giving kids and students a time to share their ideas are some of the most important things we can do to promote that happiness.
Right, and positive reinforcement and recognition.
Thank you. Yeah, positive. What we refer to in the schools as positive reinforcement, as a way to redirect kids and keep them moving in positive directions.
So how do we take that into the classroom?
Happiness is an elusive concept, like I alluded to before, and each individual's own perception of what makes them happy is going to be unique to that individual, and that's one of the beautiful things about it, is that everybody's got their own idea of what brings about happiness. And in the schools, one of the things that we do at our school is we make opportunities for happiness to occur. We have set aside times where teachers stop and they reflect upon happy events that took place within the day. The kids are given opportunities to write happygrams, where they can put them into a box where the teacher at the end of the day will read the happygram, and that gives them an opportunity to share their feelings of happiness, but also it provides an example for other students who may not be as happy about what are some things in life that can be happy. And those are two great ideas for promoting happiness, to really set aside time in the day for happy activities, and trying to make those happy activities relevant to what's personal for the students, what their own goals are.
In closing, Mr. Washington, are there any further thoughts you'd like to share with our viewers?
I think that I'd like to reiterate how important it is for us to take time to create spaces and practices that promote happiness within the schools. One of the things that I've noticed is that oftentimes kids who are coming to school, they come to school under the impression that the reason why they do it is so that they can get a good job. And while getting a good job is important to having a healthy lifestyle, we do need to encourage and remind our kids that there is more to life than work, and play is an excellent way to bring happiness into our lives and into our schools. And by creating time and place for happiness, we are promoting a positive development for our students and kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just like to go ahead and take this opportunity to introduce this book about happiness and education. It's called The Happy Child, Changing the Heart of Education by Stephen Harrison. And also this other book that was just published in 2003, What Happy People Know, How the New Science of Happiness Can Change Your Life for the Better, by Dr. Dan Baker, together with Cameron Stoff. And this is Amy Branch signing off from Michigan State University.
So don't worry, be happy.
Happiness is powerful, it's our underlying need. Happiness is why we live each day. Happiness is destiny, so let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.